So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker today, i.e. Mark Weinsoff. Mark is the current president of Optimists International, overseeing more than 2,000 clubs. And his presentation today will obviously be to inform, inspire, and challenge us all with optimism. Mark is a little background on Mark. He received his master's degree in psychology from Pepperdine University in 1992. He has applied his scientific principles established by positive psychologists to optimist clubs and individuals over the past 25 years. Mark joined his first Optimist Club in 1988. He has served the president of his local club, the Northside Optimist Club of Santa Barbara, California. Through the years, he's been elected to a number of leadership roles, including district governor, vice president of the West Coast region, and ultimately the president of Optimists International, which he serves in at this time. Mark's professional background includes 22 years as a technology manager, providing computer support for more than 1,000 University of California, Santa Barbara staff and faculty, and members that directly serve to the students. He is married to his wife, Connie, and has 2 grown children. So with that, this time, I'd like to introduce my great friend and someone I've got to know really well over the last 4 or 5 years is Mark Weinsoff. Mark, glad to have you here today. Thank you.
Good. Well, we're such good friends, Terry, that I didn't even know it was your birthday yesterday, but I wish you birthday greetings today. I haven't had internet in my house for 4 days. I'm sitting outside at a McDonald's right now, coming to you. But that's what we do as optimists. We overcome obstacles, and Kurt, I want to come back to your remarks because I think they were brilliant and right on the money. And I'll just share that I believe there's one more quality that's important besides the 2 that you mentioned for an optimist, and that is the belief that your actions matter, that you have the power to create positive change, even in the face of adversity. And that's what gives us the willpower and what I call the way power to go on, even in the face of what seems like defeat. We just keep trying because we know eventually we'll be successful. So we do something different. So for instance, last Wednesday, I had a meeting with Terry and we were on Zoom, and I was in my house with very limited internet service as I was still discovering my problems, and I was bounced out about 20 times before the end of the meeting and was so frustrated. But so I knew that wouldn't work for this session today, so here I am at McDonald's and very happy that we have the technology and grateful for McDonald's for allowing me to use their service. But the point is, there's nothing that an optimist cannot overcome in life. We do have times of grief, we do have times of despair, but we pick ourselves up and we go forward. And what that we do in our optimist clubs is we strengthen ourselves even more by bringing people with the same attitude, the same can-do attitude that helps us overcome these obstacles and make our community a better place. Your club in particular, I think, exemplifies these things. Now, I spoke with your club about a year ago now, before my year as president started, and I shared with you that I had read your book, the book that was published by your club, and it inspired me for the theme that I chose for my year, which is choose optimism. Because as Kurt mentioned in his reflection, we choose our response to good and bad things that happen in our lives. And so when we choose optimism, we choose to overcome the difficulties in life and to enjoy our successes. And I thought that was a fitting theme for our year because it's important for us to choose optimism. And of course, this year has had its share of unique or unprecedented, let me put it that way. They may no longer be unique because they may be with us a long time, but unprecedented challenges. And yet here we are overcoming those things. And I have the ability from Santa Barbara, California to talk with you there in Minnesota. So it's really it allowed me the opportunity to greet and speak personally with so many more optimists around the world. I've had days where I started my day in Nepal and then visited Florida and then Nebraska, and then Ontario, Canada, and the Philippines and California all in the same day. And that's a wonderful thing as international president to be able to do that I never would have been able to do in the past. So we as optimists have to choose our path and choose to overcome the obstacles, not with the knowledge that we have the power to overcome anything that stands in our way. And our Optimist Creed helps us do that. Now, I have been stressing throughout the year, and I'm sure I shared this with you when I spoke with you a year ago, but it never hurts to refresh ourselves, that the principles, the research of positive psychology through the years. Now, this started, the field of psychology for 100 years was working around the idea that we could cure mental illness. So psychologists and psychiatrists were focused on curing people who were having mental health problems. And around the early 1990s, a man named Martin Seligman turned that around and said, why don't we work to promote mental health rather than cure mental illness? Can we make people give people the tools to be more resilient to the challenges that they face in their lives, and to understand that their actions do matter and that they can be positive influences on their community and on themselves, even in the face of adversity. And so for the last 30 years or so, positive psychology researchers have been doing scientific studies around the idea of what goes into well-being. And here in America, we tend to have the idea that the pursuit of happiness is an esteemed goal, and certainly it is. But the science has shown us now that happiness is just one very small part of your overall well-being. And in fact, the happiness we get when we get what we want is fleeting. So let me just explore that for a second. What I mean by that is, we go through life saying, I'll be happy when I get a new car. I'll be happy when I get a promotion at work. I'll be happy when I graduate. And then those things happen. We do get that new car, we do get that promotion, and we are happy for a little while. But then what happens is we return to our previous level of happiness after a short period of time. And in fact, studies have even shown this with lottery winners. Now, I've got a lottery ticket for tonight. I think it's worth like $300 and some million. So I'm going to test that one out. I hope to be the next test subject for that theory. But what they say is that even lottery winners after 30 days will go back to their previous level of happiness. And I'll invite me back in a month and I'll let you know how that went. But the point I want to make is optimists can synthesize their own happiness at all times, because no matter what we do, if we look with gratitude on what we have to be thankful for in our lives, we will be happy. We will raise our happiness level. And in fact, the more we look to be grateful for things that we have, the more things we will see to be grateful for. And this is one of the cornerstones of optimism. There's really three components that I talk about that are contained in optimism. One is gratitude. I'm sorry if I hit my screen. Gratitude for things that we have is a basic building block for happiness, and it's the true way we synthesize our own happiness. Then positive intent is the second component, the idea that we can go forth and do things and take actions that will either make people happier, share our happiness with other people, or that will create positive change. And in fact, one of the things I do before I get out of bed every morning is I think to myself, what am I going to do today to make this world a better place? Now, it was great. Today, I knew I would be speaking with this group, and hopefully what I say today will have some positive impact on you. So that one's easy. But when you have positive intent before you even get out of bed, you get out with purpose and a spring in your step, more so. And the book that Kurt referred to by Viktor Frankl pointed out that having meaning and purpose in your life can help you overcome even the worst adversity that they ran into in the concentration camps. So the people with meaning and purpose and who could wake up every day with that in mind were the ones who survived. And so not only that, but it also gives you that spring in your step so you don't need coffee in the morning anymore. The third component of optimism is our superpower, and that is hope. because we believe our actions matter, because we believe that we can make a positive difference, we generate hope in ourselves and in others. And that's what we need to share with other people. So what has the science shown us? The science has shown us that while happiness is one component of well-being, there are 5 components of well-being that everyone across cultures around the world, no matter what your socioeconomic condition are of benefit to people. And if you have these 5 components in your life, you will your well-being will be improved. My argument to you, and I'll tell you, your club represents this in every possible way. My argument is that optimist clubs can provide each of those 5 components, and I believe your club does. So for Tom and for Al, your new members, I think you have something to look forward to. And I'm going to try and share this with you right now. These are the 5 components of well-being. I just have to move a little bit. I've got to figure out which direction. These are the 5 components of well-being that are represented in optimist clubs. And if you have these 5 components in your life, you will have a greater state of well-being. So it starts with optimism, and we covered that pretty well. And the reflection by Kurt this morning is a great example of that. Just doing something like that every time you get together is a great way to promote optimism. And you could do that in your personal lives, and even just walking down the street. If you'll just smile at somebody, they will smile back at you. Optimism is really contagious, and more so than COVID. And really, that's the thing we want to be sharing with others rather than these negative things, health situations. So sharing just even a smile as you walk down the street is one way you can share optimism with others. The second component of well-being that I'd like to talk about is purpose. And that meaning and purpose, that's what I meant by positive intent. And this is represented by the work that you do in your community, the things that you do for the youth that create a better community for your future. And your club probably pretty much knows what you're doing to create that. So I'm gonna leave it at that. The third component of well-being is engagement, and this really comes down to flow activities in your life. We all need times in our life where we turn off that internal dialogue in our brains, and we are so focused on an activity that we get into what the scientists call a state of flow. And that is where the cares of the world are off your shoulders. You're not worried about the electric bill or what your children are doing or what's going on in the world, but you're so focused on something that your internal dialogue shuts off and your brain is just absorbing what your senses are telling you. And these flow activities are things we need regularly in our life. I do it every day in about the middle of the day with just a short meditation where you stop and focus on your breathing for a few minutes. And really the science has shown us that you only have to do this for about 2 to 5 minutes every day to get that state of flow. But you also do that in your Optimist Club when you are doing your youth activities. So, and I don't recall what your particular activities in your club is, but some clubs do things like a fishing derby. And so they might go out there at 6 in the morning and they're out there till 3 in the afternoon, and they turn around and look at each other and say, where'd all that time go? That's because you were in a state of flow and you were so focused on that activity, getting the kids hooks baited up or whatever it is, that you didn't even have time. Your brain was just so focused, it didn't even recognize the passing of time. Those flow activities are important. Your club provides those during your youth activities, but you can also do it with moments of mindfulness in your gatherings and other ways. Now, the fourth component of well-being, and this is the greatest predictor of longevity, is positive relationships. And this is why we join Optimist clubs, is to surround ourselves with positive people who make meaningful contributions to their community. And excuse me, that is the real strength of our Optimist clubs, is that we bring positive people together to do positive things and make positive change. And in fact, the scientific studies have shown that good positive relationships in your life are the greatest predictor of longevity. In other words, having good positive relationships in your life will overcome risk factors like smoking or obesity or other things that cut people's lives short. So optimists live longer than other people, and sometimes that's represented. This club is pretty has a good range of ages, but you'll see plenty of old optimists around because we live longer than other people, and that's a great incentive for you new members too to understand that now you've just added to your lifespan by joining this club. And so it's important for us during our gatherings and throughout the year to find ways to build those relationships. Even when you're sitting at the Minnesota State Fair booth, I would say that you're relationship building with the other people at that booth because you're engaging with each other as well as the community, and you're sharing things and having a great time. And just being with other positive people is a great thing to do in your life, and will help you your overall sense of well-being. The fifth component is accomplishments. And so it's important for us to stop every once in a while and say to ourselves, how are we doing? We have this idea that we're taking these actions to help our communities, and we need to stop every once in a while and say, how did we do? Because it is actually important to recognize that. So Don, I'm sure, first of all, he had no idea he was getting this award. He may not have even known this award existed, and so he was not doing the work that he does because to earn that award. None of us do the work we do to get some plaque or some certificate or anything like that. But taking a moment to recognize the accomplishments is so important. And Don, I'm sure, feels great that he received that award today. And I hope you were all uplifted by the fact that we recognized him for the work that he's done. And it's important for us to do that as optimists in our clubs as well. We set goals at the beginning of the year. We're going to take these actions during the year that will make this club better. And it's important for us to recognize that every once in a while. And so we do that in our Optimist organization by recognizing clubs for honor, what we call honor club or distinguished, making sure that we recognize when clubs are doing all the right things they need to do to be a healthy club, adding members like you did today, doing youth activities, supporting our Optimist International Foundation, which provides for our scholarship contests, filling out your reports that are due for Optimists International that help us provide better service to you. And of course, handling all of your administrative duties such as dues and things like that. And when you're doing all those things that it takes to be a healthy club, then you are recognized with an honor club or a distinguished club status. And so it is important for us every once in a while to take time to recognize our accomplishments. And when you're doing those 5 things in your club, and this club probably more than any other club I've had the pleasure to visit this year is doing that, your members will be benefit from these things. So for instance, I will tell you this, I'm a better human being today because I have surrounded myself with positive people who make positive change in their communities. People like you, people like the ones in my own club, and people like optimists I've met all around the world. And so if you can say that to somebody, why wouldn't they want to be a part of this organization where they can look back in a few years and say, hey, I'm a better person today than I was when I joined because of the activities of this Optimist Club. And I'll just give you one small example from my personal life. I am now an accomplished public speaker, but when I joined an Optimist Club, I was a computer geek, and I was the kind of person who would sit in the back of the room and be very happy if I never talked to anyone and walked out of the meeting and nobody even knew I was there. But through my Optimist activities, I've been called upon to do a lot more than that. And so now I've built these skills where I can speak in public and do these things. And it's made me a better employee at work. It's made me a better family man. And it's made me a better person with, it's raised my self-esteem and all kinds of things like that. So I'm just encouraged by what your club does throughout the year. I'm encouraged to anticipate what Tom and Al will experience over their course of their term in this organization. And I just congratulate you all for the great work you do throughout the year. And it's just such a pleasure for me as president to be able to visit your club again and see what optimism is all about. So thank you for the time. And I'm glad for the opportunity, grateful for the opportunity, and congratulate you on the great work you do throughout the year.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. So we have some time for some questions from Mark about the organization. So if you'd unmute yourself or if you know how to click on the little reactions and put your hand up, we'll call on you. And maybe I'll start out, Mark, by having you tell us a little bit about the organization, particularly how we have come through so far the last 18 months with the struggles of membership and where we're at.
One of the great things I think has happened this year is we have focused more on our optimism and overcoming these obstacles. And this is real. And also my messaging has been able to get out to a lot more clubs about what it takes to be an optimistic club. And that's my goal is for this organization is to convert this organization from a service organization, a service club organization, to an optimistic organization that provides service to the community. And there's an important difference there. And that's what that difference is that we are optimistic in everything we do. I go to so many optimist clubs where I see not one ounce of optimism except when they get to the creed at the end of the meeting. And so that's important. And what I would like to suggest to you is that message is getting through. And for the last 6 months, I'll just give 5 months because we're just into our 6th month. But starting April 1st, our organization has been having growth like it's never seen before, not never seen before, but not seen for many years. We have grown in the 5 months from April 1st to August 31st, 624 members. And that's phenomenal. That's over 100 members a month. And if we keep that pace up, which I think we can, this organization adding thousands of members each year. This month of September has continued that growth. And I haven't checked the numbers this morning, but we are still in positive ground. So our organization is growing. And the reason is because unlike other organizations, we have something to offer right now that nobody else does and that everybody wants. And that's optimism. Optimism is needed now more than ever. And people are looking for what we have to offer. And when we share our optimism with them, even by Zoom, they're finding that this is something that they needed during these troubled times, especially these isolated times. And so they're joining our organization. So I have great optimism for the future of this organization. I anticipate we'll continue to grow, and I look forward to a great future.
So I'm looking here to see if anybody else, I'm trying to get back to another screen. Other questions? I have a couple because I think that I can help facilitate a couple of probably questions people might be thinking about. But Mark, another one that we've had some really good growth in the international part of the organization, and maybe you'd like to comment on why you think or what the reason is for the international communities to be wanting optimism.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. What's happening there is people are Googling optimism. And when you Google optimism, one of the first things that comes up is Optimist International. And so this is happening around the world. This is what Terry is referring to. For instance, somebody in Nepal almost 5 years ago now, Googled optimism, found our Optimist Creed and said, hey, how do I bring this optimist thing to Nepal? And so we worked with them, and luckily we can do that now without having to travel to Nepal. We can do it all by Zoom and that. And so they formed an Optimist Club in Nepal, and it was very successful. And it was so successful that other people in Nepal wanted what they had. And so now we stand today with 27 clubs in Nepal in the last 5 years, and they are now their own district, just like you're part of the Dakotas, Manitoba, Minnesota district. And this has happened in Lebanon as well. We did not have a club in there before a year ago, and now there are 7 or 8 clubs in Lebanon. It's happening throughout the world, in Africa. And the great thing is these clubs are doing what's important in their communities. So in Africa, they're raising chickens. A junior optimist club every year sends them a shipment of baby chicks. They raise these chickens and sell them for food and provide them for food for their communities. They're raising agriculture and things like that. So that's what they're doing in Africa. In Nepal, they're more focused on assisting the health providers, especially in these COVID times. And in Lebanon, they're focused on other things. So every country and every club still does what they think is important. But what's happening is people are looking for optimism, and they're finding us and our Optimist Creed, and they're wanting to be a part of it. And that's really been the source of our growth in the international community.
Denny Smith. Denny, you want to unmute? There you go.
Okay. Well, I just, you know, every time I hear you, Mark, I get things that I start with and you know, then improve upon. But something that we've used, you know, families, we have our challenges, and I shared this with my kids from the last time I heard you speak, that be optimistic about the long-term results, but deal with the short-term realities. Really put that into perspective, you know, because we have our long-term goal, but we realize we're gonna be going up and down and get some setbacks along the way. So that was just great advice. I appreciate that so much.
Danny, thank you. And I still owe you. I plan to call you after I've read your book. And for those of you who don't know, Denny Smith has written a great book, maybe more than one, but I've read one of them, and it's really great. It fits with my philosophy of optimism very well, and the fact that our actions matter and that we are able to choose our own success for ourselves. And Denny, I thank you for writing that book and for sharing it with me. And I will tell you, you and I think very much along similar lines, and I appreciate the work that you're doing to promote optimism in your sphere of influence. And I think it's a great book for those of you who haven't read it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
I think this is the book here, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotional Intelligence.
Yeah. How to Carve a Duck.
How to Carve a Duck. So
yeah.
You duck hunters out there probably ought to be reading this in the blind. Be good to get that out there and get going with it.
Well, the point, I hope I don't mischaracterize it, Denny, but the point is, when we focus on what's important, what we can control, and what we, you know, where we can be successful, we will be our best self, and that's the point. Get rid of the extraneous stuff.
Thank you. Other questions or comments they'd like to make? I know we have.
Just a comment. This is Don Silver. Just a comment. We've got Denny Smith booked for one of our as a major speaker for our group next year in one of the upcoming months. So, yeah, Denny's book is great, and I really appreciate his contribution to our organization.
Well, thank you. And while I have this, Don and I go back many, many years. And when I saw him receiving that award, I thought, man, that is just so appropriate. Probably he is on the phone, he is on the email, he is contacting people all the time to really promote attendance and what we do. So, Don, congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I got a question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mark, anyway, for being here. It's amazing to have the guy at your level at our chapter here in Minnesota online. It's great. You didn't get an Egg McMuffin, did you?
I actually probably have a McGriddle. I had to get over here real fast when I realized my home wasn't going to work. So I'm sitting there. I'm outside, but I could see through the window. There are people who've been eating next to me all day. I'm probably going to have to. I like their McGriddles more than. By the way, the Egg McMuffin was invented in Santa Barbara, California. I don't know if you know that.
Oh.
A guy named Herb Peterson, who was a McDonald's franchise owner, decided one day to just do this. He had those little circles, that you make pancakes with, and he made fried eggs and put them on the Egg McMuffin, and he just did it himself and added it to the menu, and now it's one of their biggest items of all time. So
I like those. That's one of the few things I'll actually eat at McDonald's. But that wasn't my real question. The real question is, what's the research that, as far as you know, what's the research on the longevity with optimism? Because I do not claim to be a strong optimist. I'm not even sure I am. I joined the club because I'd like to become one. I'm more of a realist with a pessimist slant, but I want to become an optimist. So I don't know if I'll get kicked out, Don, Salverta, and Terry for saying that, but it's true. I'm not a natural, super strong optimist, and but I want to become one, and I want to know what the research is. Where did you get that information about longevity?
Yeah. So I can't recall specific studies out of hand, but first of all, I'll put my email address in there, and you can email me, and I can point you in the right direction. I will tell you, there's some books that I will recommend. There's a guy named Martin Seligman, and he's written several books. The first one is called Learned Optimism. The second one is called Authentic Happiness, which is actually the one I like the best. And then there's another book called Flourish. And all of these books, they really cover the 30-year period. So there's different elements of the science at hand in each of those books. But he'll refer, I think, in the Flourish book more to the longevity studies. There's also a guy named Sean Achor, Achor, and he's got one of the best TED Talks of all time. You should just view that. Google Sean Achor, and you'll find that TED Talk. But he also has referred to some of the studies in his book, which is called let me think. I got to remember.
The Happiness Advantage.
That's it. The Happiness Advantage. I can give you some more reading material, but and also if you just Google longevity studies, you'll find it. But now I want to address your main point, though, which is that you're not an optimist, and in fact, you are just like everyone else. We, as a survival factor, human beings are geared to look for the negative, and that's so that we can survive, and but the interesting thing about that, while it does help us avoid danger, when we're looking for the negative, especially when we find it, we only have two responses to that. And the responses, as you probably are aware, are fight or flight. And so that's our response to danger and to negativity. When we are looking for the positive, when we start training ourselves to look for the positive, we broaden and build. And there's a lady named Barbara Fredrickson, who's written a book called I'll remember her book, but if you look her up, you'll find her. And she talks about the reason that looking for the positive broaden and builds your ability. So optimists are actually more innovative, and they are more productive because they expand their thinking when they're looking for the positive. In fact, another great book by Michelle Geelan, who happens to be married to Sean Achor, is called Broadcasting Happiness. And she has reports from scientific studies that show if you start your meeting with something positive, like recognizing somebody for an accomplishment or your group for an accomplishment, the meetings are more productive and innovative. And scientific studies have proven that. So while all of us are geared to look for the negative, you can train yourself to look for the positive. And keeping a gratitude journal where you write down 3 things every day that you're grateful for will help you, Tom, convert your mind from a pessimist to an optimist. And I suspect you're a closet optimist because the fact that you're here shows me that you believe that you can change, and that you want to change, and that if you believe in the power of change, then you are truly an optimist.
Oh, that's good. And if I said pessimist, I misspoke.
No, I don't think you did.
I'm a realist. I'm a practicalist. And Barbara Fredrickson's book, I believe, is called Positivity.
Yes, that's it.
Thanks, Mark, for the background. Good info. Thank you very much.
Other questions, because I do have one more thing. Is that Dennis? Did you have a question, Heinze? No. Okay, Mark, I want you to share. We have a few more minutes.
Kurt's got his hand up. Kurt's got his hand up.
Oh, Kurt, go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, I have a question, and Mark, if you could just quickly give us a thumbnail version of this. I have seen some information come across the digital airwaves on a collaborative effort between all the 4 international service organizations in October. And for a service project, pardon me, hopefully one which can involve multiple organizations and multiple clubs. If you could mention something about that.
Yeah, sure. So for more than really a couple of years, we've been having talks with Rotary, Kiwanis, and Lions and Optimists about doing joint things together. We all get together every year at the Rose Parade. And so we've been talking for years about this. And finally, they got to the point where they could pick a date that was agreeable to all of the organizations. They only picked it about 2 weeks ago. And the date for this is the week of October 10th to the 16th. Now, if it was me, if I was involved in those discussions, I would have said, okay, well, let's do it in October of 2022, because we only have 5 weeks for this year, but they decided to go ahead and do it. So what we're recommending is that your club work with other a Lions club in your area, or a Kiwanis club, or a Rotary club, or all 4 in your area, and do a project. So I've talked to a couple clubs in my area. In the past, we actually have done stuff like this, and we did a joint fundraiser and fun activity where we did a bowl-a-thon, and so we raised money for the groups, and we had a lot of fun. And but the time frame for us is too short to do that. But we're hoping that you can put something together to do in just now it's about 4 weeks. And if you can't, this is going to be a new annual event. And so we hope in the coming years you will find ways to partner with the other organizations. And what we're trying to do is we're hoping that because we're getting together, this will attract more media attention and get some eyeballs on the work that service clubs do throughout the year, all around their communities.
Thank you, Kurt. Thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's going to be what we call a president-to-president session where me as the international president, and for this month, since we're making the transition in October to a new president, Patsy Garner, Patsy and I will be co-hosting, and it's an open forum for club presidents to speak with us, but all members are invited as well. And we will be discussing things like this and some other things for the coming year. That's on September 20th at 6 p.m. Central.
Thank you.
Terry, I think our joint coalition, Ramsey County Emergency Coalition, is a perfect example of that, where we had Lions and Kiwanis and Optimist Club and the whole ball of wax.
Yes. And Mark, we've been working on that through the pandemic, as Roger just noted, where the 4 organizations had gotten together. And I believe, if I remember, we raised somewhere in the neighborhood of $185,000 in just over a year to help those in need in our community of Roseville and in there. So it's quite successful. Mark, I had one more question for you, and you might want to share this short story. I think we still have a little time left, about how you became an optimist. And I knew as soon as I started this, I forgot your guy's name from the gas station.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'm pretty sure I already told the story, so I didn't want to tell it again, but I will give you a different version of it.
Okay.
But essentially, the idea here is, or not the idea, the way I joined an Optimist Club was I was a branch manager at a bank. I was in one of my early careers. I've had 4 careers. I was in radio broadcasting. Then I went to banking because radio is not a good way to make a living. It's not a lucrative way to make a living anyway. And then I went into banking, and from there I went into computers, and ended up where I was at the university. But while I was a branch manager of the bank, we had a gas station that we shared a parking lot with, and the guy, he banked there with us, and the owner of that gas station would come in every day with his deposit. He and I would chat. We'd talk about his kids and about what's going on in the world and stuff. And we'd been doing this for about 3 years. Well, what I didn't know was he was a member of an Optimist Club. Now, I'd seen the Optimist Creed when I was a student at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and I thought, what a great thing, but I didn't know it was associated with a club or anything. Well, one day, Eddie Marquez was his name. He comes into the bank, and he had been his club president had been bugging him. And in fact, I'm going to ask you all to do this. Some of you have already done it today because I know Ted came at the request of somebody. But his club president had been asking every member of the club just to invite a guest to a meeting, not to get them to join the club, but just to invite them to a free breakfast. And Eddie was the only one who hadn't invited somebody in the 6 months. He was like me, the guy who would like to sit in the back of the room, and he was happy doing the projects and stuff like that, but he didn't want to do he didn't want to invite, he didn't want to ask somebody to join because it just wasn't his thing. But the president kept bugging him, and one day he comes into the gas station to make to the bank to make his deposit, and he stops. He says, "Oh, Mark, I'll be right back." And he runs back to the gas station. And I was like, what's going on here? And he comes back with actually a membership application. But the point was, he says, would you be interested in coming to my Optimist Club for a free breakfast next Wednesday? And I said, sure, because, in those days, they used to tell bankers that joining a service club was a great way to do business networking and things like that. So I said, sure, I'll come for a free breakfast. And I walked in the door and saw that Optimist Creed, and I signed up right on the spot. And I usually tell that story in a little different way, but the point of that story is I was the first person. Eddie had been an Optimist for 16 years when he invited me to that breakfast. I was the first person he ever asked to come to his club. and he never for another years, and he never asked anyone else to join his club. So he only spoke to one person about joining the club, and that person was me. And fortunately for me, I joined because it's been great for me. And Eddie, the only guy he ever asked to join a club, he didn't even ask me to join a club. All he asked me to was a free breakfast. Turned out to be an international president. So he did a pretty good job, I guess, of finding the right guy. But just think of all the people he left behind who could have been international president as well. He forgot to ask, So I'm forever grateful to Eddie because he gave me a great gift when he gave me the gift of membership in this organization. And I think about him all the time. I had his picture up in my office at work, and I think about him all the time. I'm forever grateful for him bringing me into this organization. So my encouragement to you as you go out today is make a commitment to invite one person to join you at your next club gathering or your next fundraiser or your next club project, and do that before September 30th. And you'll make me a happy camper, because somewhere in there, you might be inviting our Optimist International president for 30 years from now.
Thank you, Mark. That's a great story. I always like that story. And I too encourage all the members, if you're new, a first-time member today, or you've been in this organization for 5 years, as long as this club has been around, please invite your friends, your family, your coworkers to come and visit us. Come and see what we do, how optimism can really change your life, and how it makes it just better, and so forth. So, Mark, I really thank you for being here today. I know that usually we give an Optimist Creed plaque, and I'm sure you need one of those, like you need another baseball bat. But what I have for you, because I know you're a big baseball fan, and I hope you don't have this yet, is the baseball bat. Have you seen this one?
No.
Okay, it's a book that was written by Stephen Brettowitz, and actually it's a signed copy. We got it here for you, and he tells about how the baseball bat is in an evolution state. They used to use ash wood to make them. Well, the ash bats aren't working so anymore, so now they're going to maple. And this is the story of that, and I think you'll enjoy that as a tremendous baseball fan and the trivia you like to have at the games. So in between innings, you can talk to the guy next to you and say, "Did you know about this bat?"
Yeah.
So that's something.
Thank you. Thank you. One more thing. I am sitting out here in the sun, so what I'm seeing pretty much is a reflection of myself in the computer screen. But I know some things have come through the chat. If you were trying to communicate with me directly in the chat, I haven't seen it. I can't chat because I'm out here in the sun. So I put my email address, or Terry, if you could put my email address in there, that would be great. It's mark.weinsoff@gmail.com. If you want to communicate with me directly and I didn't want to a chat, please send me an email. I'll be happy to respond. And I would like to in the chat, but I just can't the sun.
Yeah, well, I'll get it up there for you, Mark. Just take me a second. I've got to get.
By the way, when I it was overcast and nice and wearing this isn't a bad idea, but once the sun came out, it's about 75 or 80 degrees and I'm baking out here. But I'm happy to be here with you. Not complaining.
I'll get that in here momentarily. No, sure, no, it won't paste. Just a minute. I'm just sort of waiting. I don't want to lose my techno part of this all of a sudden. See if this will come up for me. There it is. It'll come up maybe twice. No, this will be it here. There it is for people. It should have posted, I think. There you go. Well, Mark, thank you very much for being here today. It's just great. We really appreciate that. And so at this time, I'd like to have a few announcements, and then we'll sort of move on here as we go. But thank you much for being here. We really appreciate it.